Somewhere along the way, you learned that feelings were something to manage, not show. That neediness was weakness, that the strongest version of you was the one who kept going quietly, without complaint, without asking, without ever letting anyone see the cost. And for decades, that worked. Or at least it looked like it did. But something is different now. The old armor, the one you wore as provider, protector, the one who never fell apart, it no longer fits the way it used to. And in the quiet moments, you feel something unfamiliar rising, a tenderness you cannot quite explain, a rawness at the edges, a longing to be truly known, not just needed. This is not decline. This is not weakness returning. The Buddha taught that suffering deepens when we cling to fixed identities. And few identities are heavier than this one. I must always be strong. But life after 70 begins to ask a different question. Not how much can you endure, but how honestly can you live? What if vulnerability is not the cracking of who you are, but the softening of who you only pretended to be? Today, we explore 8 quiet ways that vulnerability becomes your deepest power in later life. Not because the pain disappears, but because honesty, at last, begins to replace performance. 1. Vulnerability becomes power when you stop pretending you are unaffected. Think about the last time someone asked how you were doing, really asked. And think about what you said. Fine. Getting along. Can't complain. How many times have you said those words while something else entirely was sitting in your chest? There is a particular kind of loneliness that comes not from being alone, but from being surrounded by people who believe you are fine because you have convinced them so completely, because you have been convincing them for decades. You learned early that your pain made others uncomfortable, that grief was something to process privately, that fear, if spoken aloud, somehow made it more real, so you sealed it away. You kept going. You wore the face that the situation required, and you called that strength. But here is what no one tells you about burying what you feel. It does not stay buried. It does not dissolve quietly in the dark. It settles into the body. It shows up as a tiredness that sleep cannot fix. A distance you cannot explain. A low, persistent ache that has no clear name because you never gave it one. The Buddha spoke of this directly. He described suffering not as one wound, but as 2. The first arrow is pain itself, loss, disappointment, the ache of aging, the loneliness of an empty house. That arrow is unavoidable. Life sends it without asking permission. But the second arrow is the one we shoot ourselves. And that arrow is resistance. The refusal to acknowledge what is already here. The story we tell, I should not feel this. I am stronger than this. Others have it worse. That second arrow does not protect you. It simply drives the first one deeper. Think of a room that has been sealed for years. From the outside, it looks tidy enough. No mess visible, no disorder apparent. But inside, without air, without light, things are slowly changing. What was once fresh has gone stale. What was once soft has grown rigid. The room looks contained, but it is not peaceful. It is just sealed. Many people over 70 carry exactly that kind of sealed room inside them. Grief for a spouse they never fully mourned. Disappointment in a relationship they never honestly named. Fear about what is coming that they have not allowed themselves to speak. Not because they are weak, but because for most of their lives, speaking these things felt like losing ground. Here is what Buddhist wisdom offers instead. To name what is real is not to be defeated by it. Naming is not weakness. Naming is the beginning of freedom. When you say quietly and honestly, I am grieving, or I am frightened, or I am more tired than I have admitted, something shifts. The thing loses a little of its grip. It is still there. But you are no longer pretending it is not. There is a Zen saying that goes like this: what you resist persists. What you acknowledge begins to move. You do not have to perform wellness you do not feel. Not here. Not anymore. So try this today, not as an exercise, not as a task, but as a small act of honesty toward yourself. Sit quietly for a moment and ask, without judgment, without rushing toward an answer, what am I truly feeling today that I have been refusing to name? You do not have to tell anyone. You do not have to fix it. You only have to let it be real. That is not falling apart. That is, finally, coming home. 2. Vulnerability becomes power when you allow yourself to receive, not only give. There is a question I want you to sit with for a moment. When was the last time someone offered to help you and you let them, not deflected, not said you were fine, but actually stopped and said, yes, thank you, I would like that? For many people at this stage of life, that moment is difficult to recall. Because receiving does not come naturally, not after a lifetime of being the one who gave. You were the one who showed up. You drove people to appointments, stayed late, carried the weight of the household, held the family steady during crisis. You were the fixer, the provider, the strong shoulder, and somewhere along the way, that role became your identity. It felt good to be needed. It felt safe to be useful. Being the giver meant you had value. It meant no one could look at you and see someone diminished. So now, when someone reaches toward you with an offer of help, something inside quietly resists. A voice that says, I do not need that. I can still manage. I do not want to be a burden. That voice sounds like independence. That voice is pride wearing a humble costume. The inability to receive is not strength. It is a wall. And like all walls, it keeps things out, including love. When you refuse help, you are not protecting your dignity. You are protecting a story. The story that you must always be the capable one. That needing anything from anyone makes you lesser. And that story, however old and familiar, is simply not true. The Buddha taught that interdependence is not weakness. It is the nature of all life. Nothing sustains itself alone. The river needs rain. The flame needs air. The harvest needs soil tended by hands other than the farmer's own. We are not isolated beings who occasionally bump into one another. We are woven together. To pretend otherwise is not wisdom. It is an illusion, and a lonely one. Think of the oldest tree you have ever seen, tall enough to humble you, wide enough to shade a family, and yet beneath it, a vast web of roots drinks from groundwater it did not create, draws minerals it did not place, is steadied by soil it did not make. That tree does not apologize for what holds it. It simply grows. You are allowed to be held. There is a story of a monk who fell ill during retreat. His fellow monks cared for him, brought food, cleaned his quarters, sat with him through difficult nights. When he recovered, a younger monk asked whether he had felt ashamed. The old monk smiled. I felt ashamed for the first day. After that, I felt grateful. And then, something unexpected, I felt connected. In my weakness, I finally understood what interdependence truly meant. To receive with grace is not passivity. It is a practice. It requires setting down the performance of self-sufficiency and allowing another person the dignity of giving. Because here is something worth holding. When you refuse help, you are not only denying yourself, you are denying someone else the chance to offer love. So this week, try something small. When help is offered, a hand with a bag, a ride, a meal at your door, do not apologize for it. Simply receive it, say thank you, and mean it. That is not weakness. That is wisdom learning, at last, to let itself be loved. 3. Vulnerability becomes power when you tell the truth about your losses. Nobody prepares you for the quiet accumulation of it. Not one great loss that arrives with ceremony and forces you to grieve, but many small ones arriving without announcement, stacking gently on top of each other until one ordinary morning you reach for something, your energy, your certainty, a friend's voice on the phone, the body you used to trust, and it is simply no longer there. After 70, loss is not an event. It is a season. The health that used to recover quickly, the sharpness you could once rely on, the role that gave your days their shape, parent of young children, worker, spouse, the one people turned to, friends who left before you were ready to say goodbye, a partner whose absence has restructured the entire architecture of your daily life, the version of yourself you planned to become, quietly retired without a ceremony. And what do most people do with all of this? They minimize it. They say, I should be grateful. Others have it worse. I have had a good life. There is no use dwelling, and those things may all be true. Gratitude is real. Perspective matters. But here is what also needs to be said. You are allowed to grieve what you have lost, even while being grateful for what remains. These are not opposites. They live in the same heart at the same time. When grief goes unnamed, it does not become acceptance. It becomes weight. A heaviness that has no clear source. A flatness that dulls the colors of ordinary days. You may not even recognize it as grief anymore. It simply feels like tiredness or distance, or a quiet reluctance to engage fully with life. That is what unacknowledged loss does. It does not disappear. It goes underground and changes the texture of everything above it. The Buddha did not teach that we should feel nothing. He taught something far more honest than that. He taught that to love anything in a world where everything changes is to know sorrow. This is not a flaw in us. It is the price of having cared, of having built a life that meant something. Every loss you carry is, at its root, a testimony to something that mattered. Grief is not failure. Grief is love, with nowhere left to go. There is a story of a woman who came to the Buddha after losing her young son, half mad with grief, carrying his body and begging for medicine to bring him back. The Buddha did not offer false comfort. He asked her to bring him a mustard seed from any household in the village that had never known death or loss. She searched for days. She found no such house. And in that searching, something shifted, not because her grief vanished, but because she understood, for the first time, that she was not alone in it. That sorrow is not a punishment singled out for her. It is the common fabric of a human life. Look at an autumn tree. It does not resist what is happening. It does not cling to its leaves or pretend the season is not changing. It lets them fall, one by one, with a kind of quiet dignity. And in that releasing, it becomes something else entirely bare and honest, and still somehow beautiful against the winter sky. You are allowed that same honesty. So today, try this. Think of one loss you rarely admit still hurts. Not the loss you have processed cleanly and placed on a shelf. The one you tend to skip past. The one you minimize with a quick, I am fine. Name it. Sit with it for a few minutes. Do not try to fix it or reframe it or find the silver lining. Just let it be real. That is not weakness. That is the first honest breath of true healing. 4. Vulnerability becomes power when you stop performing strength for people who do not truly see you. There is a kind of tiredness that has nothing to do with sleep. You know the one. It arrives after a family gathering where you smiled the entire time, after a phone call where you reassured everyone you were doing well, after an afternoon of being cheerful, capable, undemanding, the version of yourself that causes the least disruption to those around you. You hang up the phone or close the front door and something in you simply deflates. That tiredness is not physical. It is the exhaustion of performance. Many people over 70 still carry an invisible script. Be upbeat. Do not complain. Do not make your needs too visible. Do not let them see that you are struggling, or lonely, or frightened, or that some days the weight of this season is genuinely heavy. Stay manageable, stay palatable, stay edited. And the tragedy is not that you do this with strangers. You do it with family, with the very people who are supposed to know you. You have been playing a role for so long that some of them have never actually met you. There is a particular grief in that. Not dramatic, not loud. Just a slow, quiet ache of being in a room full of people who love the performance but have never been invited to know the person beneath it. And part of you wonders, if I stopped performing, would they still stay? That question is worth sitting with, because underneath it lives the deeper fear that your real self, unedited and unmanaged, might be too much, or not enough, or simply unwelcome. The Buddha taught that attachment to image is one of the subtler forms of suffering. We build a self we believe others will accept, then defend it with enormous energy. We shape our words, manage our expressions, curate what we reveal, and the more polished the performance becomes, the further we drift from peace. Because peace does not live in the performance, it lives beneath it. There is an old teaching about a student who came to a master speaking with great eloquence, careful with every word, precise in every gesture. The master listened quietly and then said, "I cannot hear you. Your presentation is too loud. Speak plainly." That is what is being asked of you now. Not eloquence, not the carefully managed version, just you, speaking plainly. Think of a mask. It may protect the face from judgment, from the discomfort of being truly seen, but it also blocks the air. Wear it long enough and you forget what your own face feels like in the open. After 70, you have earned the right to take it off, not with anger, not with a declaration, simply by choosing, in small moments, to let what is real be visible. To say, "I am not doing well today," instead of "I am fine." To sit quietly instead of performing cheerfulness you do not feel. To let your face rest into its honest expression. This is not bitterness. This is clarity. So try this today. Notice once, just once, where you are performing rather than simply being present. Where you are editing yourself for an audience that may not even require the performance you are giving them. And ask quietly, what would I say, or show, or allow, if I were not trying to manage how I appear? You do not have to answer loudly. A whisper is enough to begin. 5. Vulnerability becomes power when tenderness replaces control. At some point in later life, something becomes impossible to ignore. The body does not respond the way it once did. You ask it to recover, and it takes longer. You ask it to be steady, and it surprises you. Your children make choices you would not have made for them, and your opinion, however wise and hard-earned, lands differently than it once did. Time moves at a pace you cannot negotiate with, and the story others carry of you, who you were, what you gave, what you meant, that too is no longer fully yours to shape. Control, which once felt like competence, has begun to reveal its limits. And here is what many people do when that happens. They grip harder. They become more insistent, more critical, more rigid in their routines and opinions. They mistake tightness for strength. They believe that if they hold on firmly enough, things will stay ordered, predictable, safe. But watch what happens to a hand that grips too tightly. It cannot receive anything new. It cannot rest. It is too busy holding to do anything else. Rigidity is not strength. It is fear that has run out of other options. The Buddha taught that clinging is the root of suffering. Not just clinging to possessions or people, but clinging to outcomes, to how things should go, to the version of life we planned and feel owed. When reality refuses to match that version, we suffer. Not because life has failed us, but because we are trying to hold water in a closed fist. There is an image from the Tao Te Ching that the Buddha's teaching echoes quietly. Water does not conquer stone by force. It does not batter or demand or harden itself against the obstacle. It simply flows around it, patient and unhurried, yielding completely, and in that yielding, over time, shapes the stone entirely. The softest thing in the world moves the hardest. Softness is not collapse. Tenderness is not surrender. To release control is not to stop caring. It is to stop exhausting yourself, forcing life into a shape it has already moved beyond. Think of a parent who spent decades protecting, guiding, correcting. Now the children are grown, and that kind of control has passed. But the habit remains, and the more the parent grips, the more distance opens, not because love has diminished, but because love expressed as control eventually pushes away the very people it is trying to hold. Tenderness is different. Tenderness says, I trust you, even when I am frightened for you. I release my grip, even when releasing feels like loss. I allow this moment to be what it is, rather than what I need it to be. There is a Zen story of a master asked by a student, how do you remain peaceful when so much is uncertain? The master held up his open hand and said simply, I hold everything like this, not clutched, not dropped, just open, with room for life to move. So ask yourself honestly, what am I trying to control right now that is not mine to control? Your health, someone's choices, the way you are remembered, the pace of time. What would it feel like to hold that thing openly instead, not to abandon it, just to loosen the grip very slightly and let life breathe? That tenderness you feel when you do that is not fragility. That is wisdom finally relaxing into itself. 6. Vulnerability becomes power when you let your heart remain open after disappointment. By this point in life, you have been disappointed, not once, not a handful of times, but in the accumulated, layered way that only decades can produce. A child who drifted away and never came back, a friendship that ended without explanation, a marriage that held less warmth than you had hoped for, a life story that arrived differently than the one you imagined when you were young enough to believe imagination was a reliable map. And somewhere along the way, without even deciding to, you began to close. Not dramatically, just quietly. The way a house closes its shutters before a storm, a little less trust extended, a little more distance kept, a little more careful about what you hope for, so that when hope is disappointed again, the fall is shorter. It felt like wisdom. It felt like protecting yourself. But here is the question worth asking honestly. Are you closed because you have found peace, or are you closed because you were hurt and never fully healed? Those two things can look identical from the outside, but they feel entirely different within. Peace is spacious, Closure born from pain is tight. Peace allows life in. Protective closure keeps it at arm's length. Peace does not need walls. Pain does. The Buddha understood disappointment completely. He did not teach from a life untouched by it. He left behind everyone he loved. He watched students misunderstand his teachings. He was betrayed by those close to him, and yet he did not close. He remained until his last breath, turned toward the world with an open face. This is what compassion actually means. Not that you feel nothing, not that you trust blindly or return to sources of harm, but that you refuse to let pain have the final word about who you are willing to be. Compassion is not naivety. It is the courage to remain human after pain has tried to make you something harder. Think of a window closed against storms. It makes sense in the moment. The wind is loud, the rain is cold. But a window shut against storms also shuts out the morning. The sound of birds returning, the smell of earth after rain. Safety and aliveness are in tension, and only you can decide which one you have been choosing. Ajahn Chah, the great Thai forest master, once said, "If you let go a little, you will have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace." He was not speaking only of possessions. He was speaking of the grip we keep on our wounds, the way we hold on to what hurt us as evidence, as protection, as justification for staying closed. You get to choose how tightly you hold that. So sit with this today, not as judgment, but as a genuine question. Where have you become emotionally unavailable? Not because you have moved on, but because something hurt you enough that you quietly decided, never again. Is that closure still protecting you? Or has it been keeping out more than just pain? You do not have to fling the window open. Just crack it slightly. Let a little of the morning in. That is not foolishness. That is a heart that has been through the storm and chosen, with full knowledge of the cost, to remain open anyway. 7. Vulnerability becomes power when you speak from your real self, not your role. For most of your life, you have been introduced by what you do. Father, mother, teacher, manager, caregiver, provider, the reliable one. And for decades, those titles felt solid, even comforting. They told you where to stand in a room. They told you what was expected. They told you, quietly but insistently, who you were supposed to be when you opened your mouth to speak. But something is shifting now. The children are grown. The career has closed. The roles that once structured your days have loosened their grip, one by one, like scaffolding coming down from a building that no longer needs it. And in that loosening, something unexpected has arrived. Not just freedom, also confusion. Because if you are no longer primarily the parent, the worker, the helper, then who exactly is speaking when you speak? That question can feel disorienting. Some people experience it as loss, reaching for the familiar role and finding it no longer there to anchor them. But sit with it a little longer, because underneath the disorientation is something quietly remarkable. For perhaps the first time in your adult life, you are not required to speak from duty. You do not have to be reassuring because you are the parent, or deferential because you are the employee, or endlessly patient because you are the caregiver. The costume, as it were, is coming off, and the person underneath it, that person can finally breathe. The Buddha taught that the fixed self is an illusion, not a philosophical abstraction, but a practical truth with real consequences. We spend enormous energy maintaining a consistent self defined by roles and the expectations of others. That energy is exhausting. It leaves very little room for anything more honest, more true. When roles begin to soften, the Buddha would say, that is not loss. That is the beginning of clarity. Because awareness does not belong to any role. It was always beneath them, patient, waiting for the performance to ease. There is a story of an actor who spent 40 years playing the same character, powerful, commanding, always in control. When he retired, a friend asked, "Now that the curtain has fallen, who are you really?" The actor was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I am only now beginning to find out." And his face, in that moment, was more alive than it had ever been on stage. That aliveness is available to you now. You have opinions that have nothing to do with anyone's approval. Things you always wanted to say but stored away because the role did not allow for them. A perspective shaped by 7 decades of living that belongs entirely to you, not to your function, not to your usefulness, not to what anyone needed you to be. Speak from that place, not with anger at what was suppressed, just with the quiet, unhurried honesty of someone who has finally stopped auditioning. So try this today. Finish this sentence honestly, without editing yourself before you have even begun. At this stage of life, what I most want to say is, let whatever comes, come. Do not judge it for being too small or too late. It is yours. It always was. You are simply finally free to say it. 8. Vulnerability becomes power when it brings you into the present. There is something that happens when you truly understand that time is not unlimited, not in an abstract way, not the way you understood it at 40, when it was a philosophical idea you nodded at and set aside, but in the bone-deep way that later life eventually teaches. When you notice that recovery takes longer, when a name slips away mid-sentence, when you look at a gathering of people you love and a quiet thought moves through you, how many more times will we all be in the same room together? That awareness can arrive as fear, and often it does at first. But something else is also possible, something that fear, if you stay with it long enough and let it soften rather than harden, quietly opens into presence. When you know that life is tender, you stop treating today casually. You stop moving through your hours on automatic, saving your real attention for some future moment that never quite arrives. The fragility of things, which once felt like the cruelest part of aging, begins to reveal itself as a kind of gift, not a comfortable gift, but a real one. The Buddha taught impermanence not as a reason for despair, but as the very ground of awakening. When we stop pretending things will last forever, we finally begin to meet them as they actually are, fully, without the sleepwalking of taking things for granted. Vulnerability, in this light, is not the enemy of peace. It is the doorway to it. Think of a candle flame. Watch one in a quiet room. There is something about it that commands attention in a way electric light never does. It moves, it wavers, it could be extinguished by the softest breath, and precisely because of that fragility, it holds a beauty that permanence never manages. You watch it differently. You are present with it in a way you would not be with something that could not be lost. That is what this season of life is offering you. Not a reason to be afraid, but a reason to pay attention, to let the morning light land on you as if for the first time, to hold a conversation with someone you love without part of your mind already elsewhere, to eat a simple meal and actually taste it, to let this ordinary day be enough, not because nothing better is coming, but because this moment is genuinely irreplaceable. Thich Nhat Hanh once wrote that the most precious gift we can offer anyone is our attention, not advice, not experience, not accomplishments, our full, unhurried presence. That presence becomes more possible, not less, as life grows more tender, because tenderness teaches you what matters. It strips away the noise. It leaves you standing before the ordinary and suddenly seeing that the ordinary was never ordinary at all. So pause today, just once, and ask yourself honestly, if this moment is fragile, this conversation, this meal, this patch of afternoon light, this breath, how do I want to meet it? Not with fear, with presence. That is the final quiet power that vulnerability gives you. It brings you home to now. And now, it turns out, is the only place any of us have ever actually lived. We have walked through 8 quiet truths together, and underneath all of them, the same thread runs. After 70, vulnerability is no longer something to outgrow. It is not a phase to push through, a weakness to correct, or an inconvenience to manage more skillfully. It may be, in fact, the very thing that finally makes you real. You do not need to be less sensitive. You do not need to become harder again. You do not need to locate the old armor, dust it off, and strap it back on as if the decades of carrying it had not already cost you enough. Because the deepest power of this season of life is not domination. It is not endurance at all costs. It is not the performance of someone who has everything handled and needs nothing from anyone. It is something quieter than that, and something far more difficult. To remain open without pretending everything is fine. To tell the truth without shame about what this life actually feels like from the inside. To accept help without losing your dignity in the receiving. To grieve what you have lost without collapsing under the weight of it. To soften gradually and with full intention without disappearing. That is not weakness. That is the strength of someone who no longer needs to hide from their own life. After 70, power is no longer the power to impress. It is not the power to control or to endure in silence or to need nothing and no one. It is the power to be undefended, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes the softest part of you is the strongest thing you have left. Carry it gently. It has brought you this far.